So one of the things I enjoy doing, and I make points about it in this, in other videos, but I enjoy stopping by and doing things for my father that I'm not asked to do. Like, he never asked me to bail him out of court when he stole money from my Social Security and stole my rent. Instead, his wife was holding my health hostage, and I did it out of the kindness of my heart. He asked me to clean his house on weekends and stuff like that, but I found extra ways to help him clean and do extra good. Like, for instance, when my father lost his USB, I went up a flight of stairs and I spent the day helping him. He got mad at me, but I did that out of the kindness of my heart. But that's not a good example. There were many times where I would go downstairs, I would go upstairs, I would try to fix things, I would try to put them together. There were even times where I might even try not to eat something because my father liked it. If my father liked to eat something in the house, sometimes I would try not to eat it, like if it was deli meat or stuff like that. Um, when I got older and I realized he was getting money to feed me, that was a bad idea. I should have just ate whatever the hell I wanted to eat, but I wanted my father to be happy. So I did that a lot. But when it came to my license, when I got my first learner's permit at 16, and still today, one of the reasons I wanted a license, and this sounds stupid after knowing what my father and mother, how I still can't drive because I need treatment for a neurological disorder, and they're still trying to prevent me from getting medical care, so there's no way I could possibly drive until we handle this, but instead they want to literally have me murdered by my mother. And yes, if somebody slips you pills, poisons you, destroys your central nervous system, and then you die from those poisons and those injuries, that's murder. If you slip somebody poison and it takes 20 years to kill them, it's still murder. It's still, and if you did it by accident, it's still manslaughter. It's still poisoning. It's still drugging. You can call it whatever fantasy you want, but it's still you slipped a child pills he wasn't prescribed, destroying his central nervous system, and then trying to hide this from every doctor while moving this child across the country, letting nobody properly know what's going on, and cutting off doctors, cutting off teachers, as well as slipping him more drugs and then getting him overprescribed years later after you trafficked him around the country. You're also fucking with the child's head. You're also getting him side effects and then trying to complain that those side effects are illnesses. So the doctors are seeing things like drowsiness, maybe they're seeing hints of depression, maybe the kid is complaining about suicidal thoughts at nighttime right after taking three medications that can cause suicidal thoughts, and when he stops taking the medication, those side effects go away. But the mother says they still continue. She's saying the bumping in the furniture is self harming, the sucking on the skin is self harming. When he got caught in his foot on the pool, jumping in, it's self harming. Everything is self harming. Everything's a mental illness. So when you have that going on, and what I'm about to say might surprise you if you're a normal person. I what I wanted to do is get my license so I could stop by my father's house, mow his lawn, and do him favors. Yes, still today, that was one of the reasons. Well, obviously, the stuff that needs to be handled first. He definitely needs to take responsibility for what his wife did to me. And then, yes, when I get my license, that's on the top of my list. Surprise him with mowing the lawn and random stuff. Pack my mower in the back of my truck, drive over and mow his lawn. Those are definitely things I want to do. I want to stop by, drop off gifts just on the doorstop. Like, for instance, I bought a bicycle. I'm not able to use it, and it's an adult, really, really good bicycle. Now, my nephew's getting to be almost an adult age. He'll be driving soon. But if he goes to college or if he ever needs a bike, this is the type of bike he's going to want. He's getting to be 16 years old soon, I would guess, and he's going to be getting a license and a car. But there are times where you want to go mountain biking, you want to go biking, you want an adult bike. This is by far one of the best adult bikes you can buy. It's over a $300 model. It's the Moondog model, actually from the movie Moondog. It even has the Moondog signature on the side. It's actually a collector's edition replica of the one in the movie. And it's definitely adult. I mean, Moondog was an adult. He definitely, that's kind of the point of it. It's an adult drunk bike. It's a bicycle used for adults who can't drive. But it's also an awesome, awesome bike for teenagers who are becoming adults and maybe don't want a kiddie bike. That type of gift would have got dropped off probably just right at the house, wherever he is, my brother's house, if I had a vehicle. But for me to drive, I'm going to need to be able to control my feet, arms, and not have epileptic seizures, shakes, not have problems with flashing lights. Now, can that be done? Absolutely. I've already done it before. We found treatments like what they give me when I have a seizure, diazepam. We know Triliptal works semi. If we mix it with other stuff, it works 100%. If we take it by itself, it does cause a lot of improvement, but I don't think it's enough to drive, even though it's very close. When I take CBDV and Triliptal, that's close, but no cigar. So we got a lot of that type of stuff going on. But here's the main thing. No matter, well, let's say I do treat myself. Let's say I can drive for months on end without having a twitch or any accidents on the wheel or the pedal. But I get in an accident a year later because I have a seizure at a flashing light. I get to a train, the lights start flashing. I have epileptic seizure and I go in reverse and I hurt somebody. Then they want to know why I hit reverse and slammed into the cop car in back of me. And then I try to explain I have a neurological disorder that causes my legs to twitch and I have spasms. And then the cop asks me to provide paperwork in court. But then the doctors say all they have is a bunch of mental illnesses from my mother and father. I tell stories to get out of trouble and shit like that. A bunch of bullshit from my mother and father to get out of trouble. Yes, my mother and father do something like take a swimming medal. I won an orphanage away, drug me, I have an overdose. I go without education. They put me in a cabin in New Mexico that's it's supposed to be a program, but it's not quite built yet. It's very obvious they don't have the pool, they don't have the staff, they don't have the teacher. They just don't have the facility built yet. So they apologize for that, but I still went without the education. And then when I go without 18 months of education, I get choked out by African American when this happens, and it's all over with. My father wins $24,000 or $26,000 or whatever the hell it was. I don't even care about the money, but he wins the money. So do we get me an education? No. I get homeschooled by a crazy ass elderly mother who wants to play teacher while vacationing in Maine and buying and selling houses. Yeah, any parent out there must be gasping, going, wait a minute, wait a minute. They put you in a program in New Mexico for 18 months. Your father sues the place and wins. You're talking about abuse there. It's obvious you're very slow and not learning. You can't read. Do they ask you any questions about what you learned there? Or are they just listening to the program? They're listening to the program they sued. Not only that, after they sued this program, this place up in the mountains in New Mexico, more of a cabin, more of like, it's supposed to be a place that was getting built. The only place in all of, like, if you go to Arizona, New Mexico, or Texas, there is no programs to throw your kids away. But my mother and father wanted to throw me away. And that was because my mother was the one who wanted me. But when we went to Texas, that was because my mother drugged me, and that's why she wanted to go to Texas so bad, even though my father did not. Now, she went to Texas to get a new start. She said that to my father on several occasions. I want a new start. I just want a change in scenery. Those type of statements. When we got there, things were great for her. She loved it. Until I went to the doctors and I wanted to get better. I told them that something was wrong with my nerve. Well, I said that I lost my sight and I lost the ability to feel and my body was changed. and I started to talk about the loss of senses and how I wasn't able to speak and things like that after my mother administered medication to me. Now, it was an overdose, but my mother was calling it an allergy attack in Westford. But now in Texas, she goes, I don't remember. I don't think it happened. He's a liar. Blah, 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 blah. A bunch of bullshit comes out of her mouth. Meanwhile, I'm talking about a traumatic change in my body. And not only that, teachers, people were actually speaking about this change. People were trying to get me help. And this is not the first time that she heard about it. And any mother that heard about their child losing their vision and calling it an allergy attack, where their child actually lost his vision, lost the ability to speak, screaming for help, you hang up on the people saying to bring him to the emergency room, and he passes out on a pile of newspapers. That's pretty memorable to me, especially that Texas was only 2 years or 3 years later. But my mother's now trying to dodge any information. She's telling the doctor not to look into this illness. She doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. And as soon as we leave this doctor's office, my mother tries to find a program or a place to throw me away before she gets into any trouble again. Because she already was knowing what was coming for her in Westford, Massachusetts. She adopted an orphan after she destroyed his nervous system. She was playing around with pills. There was pills involved at my actual adoption. So we know there was a lot of my mother pushing for pills. But there was only a couple. My mother was slipping me pills at that time. So it wasn't like the doctors were over medicating me and I had an overdose. It was that my mother was trying to have me over medicated. It was just starting to be an over medicating. And then my mother slipped me something that I wasn't prescribed and I experienced an overdose. So now in Texas, my mother hears that I want help with my central nervous system. Now, I don't know what that's called. I don't even know the word nervous system at this point. I'm just calling it lightning in my back, not feeling so well, I lost all my senses. I took these pills that my mother gave me. I lost my sight. I'm going through all the symptoms, how horrific it was. You can see it in my eyes that it's real. I go over this over and over and over. But then my mother cuts off doctors for years, like 4 years, no doctors, no teachers, nobody helping me with this. Just 18 months of pure abuse, no education. I'm not the only one going through this. Still feel. I wonder if Christina Stiers ever got help. I bet she told her parents how bad that place was, or she was so like Stockholm syndrome that maybe she was afraid to talk up, like her dad would be mad at her that she was getting strangled with her own arms, and she had bruises at times that she was complaining about on her shoulders that she would show me. I mean, she would make out with me a lot too, and we were only 8 and 8. We were both 8 years old, so. And there was one little girl, 7 years old. She got choked out naked in the shower. Oh my God. We had to listen to it too. It was terrible. The African American staff member, the only one. The rest of the staff members would do appropriate holds. They would hold your arms around your chest, and they would do it just to restrain you. But this one staff member would hold it around your neck and pull and pull and pull until it was bruises and it was extreme pain, until any kid below the age of 10 years old that was white would scream and scream in pain. And the more you screamed in pain, the tighter he would pull until a lot of people had bruises. And because the parents would only come 1 hour a month, and they would say, oh, well, we're calling our kids once in a while. But when we were really crying about being in pain or when we had bruises, we weren't supposed to call our parents. We were only allowed to call our parents when we were over it and now we're doing something else. And they would monitor the calls as well a lot of the time. The phones were pay phones and a strip where you had staff members watch you. And it was like a jail cell type situation. Like the jail phones lined up on a wall. That's how we had phones to call our parents. And they would keep a good eye on you. It's not like we got a room in private where we got to make a phone call to talk to our parents. No, it was right there, right in the living room, right where the staff members are, right like a prison type scenery. Like you had like 3 or 2 phones lined up on a wall, a seat right there, and a staff member watching you as you make the phone call. This is not the scenery. They did not want parents knowing that there was no teacher for at least 9 to 12 months. Something like that, I would guess, was about the time that I went without an actual teacher. But because I was there for 18 months and we only had a teacher in the beginning for 3 months and another teacher for like another 3 months at the end, for something like that, you can't count those 3 months because it's not a year of education. You're cutting it off, and there was no books for the last 3 months. The last 3 months was not an education really either. He was a teacher. He was teaching us about the Indians in the area, having us glue a hut together, and then apparently after my mother and father sued the place, went to Maine to help themselves out, they wanted a bunch of paperwork. So then they started calling them, and then they started yelling at me, why don't you know this paperwork? Why don't you know this paperwork? Via Santa Maria printed out this paperwork and says you know it. They sent over so much paperwork that you did. They sent over so much paperwork that you did. I'm guessing that paperwork was all the stuff they had me do for that 30 days, or it was stuff from the 3 months in the beginning, or it was stuff that he signed up and had us fill out at the end. There might have been a couple papers that he helped us fill out at the end where he walked around, but most of the kids refused. Now, I always wanted to learn, and I was always the one goody two-shoes kids, trying to do the right thing. I was always the kid in school raising his hand, trying to answer the questions, trying to learn. I was always the kid, give me more learning, give me more, teach me more, give me more, give me more. And I think that came from me not being allowed to go to school for so much time. My mother homeschooled me in New Mexico. I wasn't allowed to go to school. All the travels to Texas and New Mexico, being an orphan and my mother having me redo the first grade. I'm doing the same grade twice in first grade, but then I'm redoing a lot of first grade, second grade, and third grade work up in Texas because they have to reevaluate what level I'm at. Also, I just got done with physical therapy and speech therapy, but I'm still having a lot of speech problems, walking problems, arm problems, problems with my nervous system. But now my mother doesn't want anybody doing a goddamn thing about it. She wants to hide the cause of it, and any time her son speaks about this horrible thing and how it changed his body, she wants to shut me up or send me away. Throw me away. No, he's speaking about it again. Get rid of him. I'm going to get in trouble. And then my father, she goes into overdrive trying to hide this because she thinks I know. By the time we go to Chelmsford and I'm 13 years old, I'm speaking about this overdose, and I'm speaking about it every time any doctor asks me about allergies. I tell them about this mysterious allergy my mother said was an allergy, but my mother knows she's full of shit. And she thinks I know she's full of shit, but I don't know. I figured out my mother was full of shit in my 20s. So I had no idea that an overdose wasn't an allergy attack. I'm not kidding. I was stupid. When it came to medical care, all I knew was what my mother taught me and what the doctors told me. And the doctors only told me whatever my mother was informing them information on until I got to my 20s and I got honest answers. Like, oh, if I take a pill and one of the side effects is depression, but I only get that depression when I take that pill, and then I stop taking the pill and I never get depression again, and then I take that pill again and I get depression again, and then I read the paperwork and that pill says if you get depression, call your doctor and let him know, and I call my doctor and let him know whenever I take this pill I seem to get very drowsy and then depressed, and then he says stop taking the pill and the depression goes away forever, and then the doctor says that's common. Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. Instead, my mother is telling me that whenever I get drowsy or whenever my girlfriend breaks up with me, that means that I have depression because I'm sad about my girlfriend breaking up with me. And that's because I have depression that I cry about that. That's no big deal because I'm only 14, 15, so I shouldn't be crying about my girlfriend breaking up with me. That's the depression kicking in. And when I'm really, really drowsy at the age of 7 years old, because my mother just slipped me pills, and I'm oh my God, after taking these pills, I sleep in the car, I sleep on a wooden bench during my adoption, I sleep during my own birthday type party. It's an adoption party where I'm getting gifts, and my mother's going around telling people how I'm depressed. I must be depressed. So you can see where this might go bad. Or when I win a swimming medal in an orphanage and I try to show it to my mother, that means I have attachment disorder. That means I'm a liar. That means that I need to be on drugs. That means I'm going around putting my names on things to hurt her and I'm out to get her. If I'm playing with my toys and I really like a new toy from McDonald's that my mother got me and I'm hugging my mother, loving my mother about it, but then I spend a week playing with this toy, and then I go to school. My mother will throw away my toys, and when I get home, she'll tell me, "You like those toys better than me, so I threw them away. Stop liking the toys more than me, and then I won't throw your toys away." Then, when we go and ask later, then it's because I didn't clean my room at 6, 7 years old. Actually, I think I was 6 at that time. Then my mother thinks I'm out to get her a lot. She thinks that everything I'm doing is all to get out her. Meanwhile, my signs of attachment, like when I try to show my accomplishments to my mother, instead my mother takes my trophies or my medals away, shows it to the doctor, and tells the doctor that means I have attachment disorder. Comes up with a fantasy about those medals. So I'm showing my accomplishments to my mother because I'm getting attached to her. And that's usually normal for a kid who gets adopted who only wanted a family and a home. But instead, my mother's taking this and turning it into a big illness bullshit story. And then this goes downhill to today. Remember, this was at 6, 7 years old. She did this all the way until 1920, till she killed herself with pills and alcohol. Then my father tried to hide that, but they wouldn't give her the liver transplant, and there was a bunch of funny business going on. Then she died in an ambulance on the way to get the liver transplant, so the funny business never really mattered. What I think was really a favor to my father from the hospital, because there was a bunch of protocol they were supposed to follow, like refusing the liver because she was failing for alcohol. The day she was home, she had to go back and she had alcohol in her system. So that was probably just a whole setup to try to help my father out from the hospital, but who knows? But she died of liver failure. But then my father tries to act like it's old age. She wasn't drinking. Oh, no, she only, I only caught her once taking Zax's Vicodin. Only once she was stealing pills. Even though I know multiple times she was taking pills, my old prescriptions. And I know she was drinking and mixing pills on a regular basis. And I watched her pop those pink little pain pills like they were Tic Tacs all the time. She even gave them to me on a plane like it was nothing. See, she was so used to taking little pink opiates that she was handing them to me when I had a headache on a plane. I had a headache. I took a Tylenol already, or maybe I just said I have a headache. I don't even know if I took a Tylenol, but she's handing me an opiate pill. I'm 16 years old and she's handing me opiates. No wonder why I became a cough medicine addict. I'm watching my mother at 13, 14 years old, the prescription, she's taking Xanax. At the age of about, I don't know, 18, I'm watching her steal Vicodin. No, I was probably 16, 17 when I got prescribed Vicodin because I was found on the ground shaking in extreme pain and I was getting extreme migraines. But it was also causing me problems with standing up. What was separated, I don't know why. Well, now I do. I didn't at the time. I didn't know why I couldn't stand up when I was in pain, or why my whole nervous system would shake, or when simple stuff like flashing lights would go, I would get these same weird symptoms. I figured everybody, when they're in pain, curls up. I mean, when you kick somebody in the testicles, they curl up in a ball in pain, right? But now I realize that some of these more mild, painful things, you shouldn't be on the ground, curled up, shaking, and you shouldn't lose the ability to like use your arms. Your arms aren't supposed to shake like mine do, and it's a neurological disorder. And seeing as it goes back to actually these things were happening in New Mexico, they were happening in Texas. Like for instance, I was putting on suede jackets in Texas because the wind was bothering me and causing my upper arms to spasm and shake. And that was what I used to call well, I should say upper back and some arm twitches. It's more like an arm twitch, uncomfortable feeling. I'm cold. You know how, like, when you're cold, your back starts tightening and your back cramps, and maybe your muscles, you start putting tighter to your body and you try to warm up? That type of feeling, but it actually causes a lot more spasms and twitches. And because of that, I call it cold. And I mean, I shiver, but it will be like 75, 80 degrees, and it's just a little breeze. So people are calling it warm, and they're in t-shirts. I'm out there feeling really crappy, so I put on a suede jacket. But then everybody's like, why is Zach wearing a suede jacket in El Paso, Texas, when it's 80 degrees out? Even though it's really 75 with the wind, so it's like 70. But the wind is bothering me, and I think it's really the sand also hitting off my skin was probably bothering me too. But I didn't realize I had such sensory issues on the nervous system because touch is another thing. And my mother was trying to act like it's autism. But it's not that I don't care. I don't care if people touch me. It's the shock of it. Once when the shock's over, I go, touch me again, touch me again. Once when I can get the shock, I mean, but I get a shock every time. But as long as I know it's coming, I can kind of prepare my body into lesser shock. But it's just a shock. It's not that I care if you touch me or not. I don't go, oh, you touched me, you touched me. Oh my God, you touched me. Oh, he touched me. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not like I do that if you touch me, like I've seen a lot of the children do or the special needs people I work with. That's why I can do an imitation, as I've worked with several of them. I've had to live with them. My father even had me like living in Lowell Treatment Center, and the next door kid like smashed his grandmother and like tore up his face or something. It tore up her face. It was just like terrible how she looked in his backstory, and it just horrible stuff my mother and father put me through. And that's why when I try to say, I know that my touch is more of a shock. But see, the doctors won't listen to me because my mother always goes, it's autism, it's autism, it's autism. So when I tell a doctor, no, 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 it's not autism. When people touch me, it's more like a shock. Well, some autistic people explain it to be a shock. Yeah, well, I don't mind when people touch me. It's just part of it. Like if there's a flashing light, a cold, there's a weird noise and a touch together, I might have an epileptic seizure. But it's no different than the flashing light, and I don't mind touch. There's no mental part of touch. I mean, trust me, lots of people have touched me in wrong ways, and I got over it. I don't know anybody who's autistic who doesn't like touch, who can take the abuse my mother took and keep their mouth shut about it and not have a mental break. I don't know autistic people who don't like touch that can take a ruler to the face and take the type of touch my mother touched me with, or have the type of touch that an African American black guy choking you out, throwing you around like a rag doll. They would be permanently quiet for the rest of their life. If you take an autistic kid who doesn't like touch, that freaks out with touch, and you have a black guy choke him out, throw him around, then have a mother smack him around, then drug him with drugs he shouldn't be prescribed, and give him pills and slip him pills he's not prescribed, and give him extra epicac as punishments. There's no way that child would ever speak or ever be able to function even a word. No way, not an autistic child. But me, my mother was trying to make me seem autistic by destroying my central nervous system and making up stories about me. But by continuing this behavior, now the doctors are unable to help me because they got 25 years, my father and mother, trying to pretend that I have every mental illness in the book. But that also means any real symptoms I have from real illnesses, like for instance, let's say I am bleeding into my testicles and I go to the hospital. The first thing the doctors want to think is that I want attention, I'm having a mental break, and I want to show off my testicles and flash my testicles for fun, until they actually look, and then they realize there's blood in my testicles, and then the doctor says the words, oh my God, this is real, you need a urologist or a GI specialist, seeing as the pain is 2 inches from your belly button, you need probably a GI specialist, and that is blood in there, and then they treat it real. But their first guess is to treat it like a mental illness, like I'm going into the emergency room to have fun and games, and they're doing this the reason why the doctors act like this every single time I'm injured and I am in an emergency situation and there's a good chance I might die. I get malpracticed, and the doctors treat me this poor way because of my mother's and father's reporting. That's it. And it's the same reason why I can't drive, go to my father's house, mow his fucking lawn. Because the drive, the doctors need to know what's going on. So not only can I not visit my girlfriends, not only can I not drive to work, not only can I drive to my father's house to surprise him with a mowed lawn, I can't even live in my car and survive. So these skills that the rest of my family, like my brother Tim, my sister Valerie, they relied on a college degree. They relied on getting 12 years of education. They relied on my father's gratuity. They relied on having a lot of support. They relied on not being picked apart when they do something like drink and drive. If my brother drinks and drives, it's not like my mother went and tried to report him and have his child taken away. But you know what? That's exactly what would happen to me if I got caught drinking and driving. If I got drinking and driving and I had a son, the same age son as my brother had or my father had, you better believe that I would have my child taken away within a week. But my father, he can drink and drive with a child as young as me. My brother can drink and drive with a child as young as his. And they can get caught doing it. And nobody fucking cares because they will throw money at each other. My brother had the money from my father, so he got out of it. Plus, he never had my mother up his ass trying to call DSS. But see, I would have somebody up my ass, and I would have no money to try to bail myself out. So I don't get $3 grand or $2 grand, or I don't get bailouts like that. And I also get somebody up my ass constantly. Something my brother never had. He never had Patricia, my mother, up their ass trying to cause problems in his life. He never had her controlling his body or his son's body. He never had to take drugs and still function at a job. I would like to see my brother take the 6 pills I was taking, take the 2 pills I was taking, and go to work at the age of 16, 17 years old as a teacher's aide or as a teacher. I would love to see my brother do that for 4 years. Take the same pills I was told to take because my mother's giving information to my doctor. I'm giving information to my doctor. But my doctor at 16 is not listening to a fucking word I have to say because I don't know anything. So he's listening to my mother, and that's why I'm on such high doses of Seroquel and Thorazine when I'm just saying I need help with sleep and anxiety. But my mother's saying that I need a lot more than that, even though it doesn't do anything to help me. I can't function. My job didn't want me working anymore because of those pills. So we know the pills are bad if my job is telling me not to take my night meds anymore because they don't like the way I look in the morning. But then my doctor says they can't tell you what meds to take or not. And my mother says the same thing. No, we want you on these meds. But then more and more people say, you should get off those drugs, you look cockeyed. My brother's telling me to get off those drugs. My job is telling me to go off those drugs. Later, it's just one after another saying that those drugs are making you look cockeyed at bedtime and in the morning. And I'm having emotional issues with these drugs as well. They're doing me not a damn thing good other than making me a drooling, drowsing mess that's quiet. I'll tell you what, I was always feeling like I was on 100 Percocet. If you want to know what it's like taking the pills that my mother set me up to take, it's like taking 100 Percocet every single night till the morning at 10 to 11. Yes, it's like taking a bunch of Percocet, like 100 of them, at bedtime, and then being on 60 milligram Percocet all the way to 10 a.m. It's a horrible, and it's like a cheap, shitty Percocet that feels fucking awful. It's like taking the shittiest Percocet that feels awful too. And why did I take them? Because I had a real disability that was getting worse, and some of the meds helped, some of them made it worse. And the reason why I figured that out is because it's a neurological disorder. Stimulants like Ritalin and coffee make it worse, while things like Xanax and Triliptal, things for epilepsy, make it better. And that's why I got confused, because some of the medications like gabapentin, Lyrica, what I'm taking now, Triliptal, or Xanax, what I took before, or Ativan, what they give me for the epileptic seizures, all those showed great improvement. While things like Thorazine, Seroquel, Lamictal, Risperidone, all those made me 10 times worse. All the antipsychotics, all the antidepressants, all the bipolar medication made me worse. When we treat my hyperactivity, my ADHD, because I can't concentrate and I'm hyper and talkative. I also have horrible anxiety. I get anxiety attacks. I got PTSD and I get panic attacks, especially at the doctor's office. That's where doctor's office or with the state or with anybody where I need medical care or I'm not able to go back to work. And sometimes at work when I'm injured, but that's a new thing. Being scared that something horrible is going to happen to me at work is a new thing, only because of obviously I'm working a lot more while injured. And when you're injured and you have another injury and another injury and another injury and they're starting to stack up, that's fucking scary, especially when you don't drive and you're walking through snowstorms and having seizures on the side of the road. But you remember, my family loves disrespecting me. So when I have scars on my body, what I still have the show for it, they'll tell me those scars are made up and I'm telling fantasies. When other people, like in Lowell, have said that I had an epileptic seizure in the side of the road, they want to say it must be drugs. When I'm getting a call every month while homeless living in the woods and they're finding me and scraping me off the cement and nobody knows why, there's no drugs in my system, my family will go, it's probably fights. You want to know how many fights I've really had the whole time I was homeless? Two. Two. One where a guy owed me 3 times. He took money from me and didn't pay me back 3 times. He was supposed to trade me. I was supposed to pay him, and he was supposed to come with me to work. That's it. He was supposed to help me shovel some snow. He refused. I gave him the money up front. He didn't show up. Fucking loser. Then I gave him money for some weed. He ran off with the money. Then I gave him money for weed one more time. This was actually a test. And then it was a fight. Because he actually hit me and broke my tooth when I told him he has to pay me back or settle this. And he tried to turn away. I tapped him on the shoulder, said, no, 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 we're not done here. Then he actually broke my tooth and I beat the living shit out of him. Somebody else hit me with a brick. And then the only other fight was a big guy who was picking on a disabled man, trying to pick on him. This guy was blind. He couldn't see well, heavy set. He was 50 years old, mentally retarded, crossing the street. This big redneck started getting in his face, fighting him, going, you cockeyed motherfucker, what you looking at? Now, I know that this disabled guy can't see. He's not looking at anything. He's just trying to find and look at across the street. He's trying to find the crosswalk. But this redneck who's drunk shit-faced, high as a kite, is picking on this disabled man. And of course, me, I'm pretty drunk myself. So I decide I'm going to pick on this 300-pound motherfucker. Yeah, this 300-pound drunk redneck who could annihilate me is picking on a disabled man. But I'm drunk too. So I'm going to go over and pick on the person who's picking on another person and see how he likes it. So I start picking on this redneck, but in a way that he kind of understands not to do it to the disabled man. And then, of course, it's a fight. But those are only 2 fights in the 4 years I was homeless. Now, how many times did they find me on the side of the road? 20, 40 times? But I guarantee you, my family would be like, it's drugs, it's drugs, it's drugs, it's fights, it's drugs. He was hung. They don't know shit. Neither does the hospital because they didn't look into anything. The only person that knows what my cause of my injuries are is me. Like, for instance, a lot of them were my epileptic seizures, but the hospital refuses to look into my injuries. They refuse to look into anything real. They want to look into bullshit and waste taxpayers' dollars because then it's a revolving door and then they make more money off the taxpayers. Because if they actually treat me for my real illness, then I can move on with my life and I don't ever have to keep billing the taxpayers for emergency room visits and me being found on the side of the road half dead. But if they continue to play games with me at the emergency room. And if the primary cares and doctors keep on fucking with me and bringing me in loop-de-loops and then acting like I'm the problem, and then like they cancel on me and then say I didn't show up so they can double bill. But then it says I'm missing my appointments. It's not the doctor calling me and canceling and then billing me like I didn't show up anyways. No, no, no. It's Zach's fault. So we get a lot of that bullshit as well. So while they're doing this, they're able to just bill me, 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 bill me. I mean, the taxpayers have had to pay $2 extra million because these doctors are scamming me fucking silly. Meanwhile, my father got scammed by my mother, and I'm just a forever piggy bank for these doctors. And most likely, if I talk too much about this, how the doctors are scamming the shit out of me, they'll probably cut off my insurance and leave me to die with nothing. So I either have a choice. I can get malpracticed, I can get nothing, and I can die in a hole. Great choices, huh? And it's set up by my mother and father, and they can stop it any time they want. We can actually fix this, but they need honesty. And the problem is, when I give honesty, my father wants to make it all disappear. Make it all disappear. It's all a fantasy. My son's full of shit. It's all a lie. Don't listen to him. His favorite words.